Welcome to another edition of Language of the Gods, where we discuss issues and topics relating to metaphysics, astrology, and astrotheology. Here we delve into the dark recesses of hidden knowledge in an attempt to draw out the truth which has been suppressed and distorted by a sinister hidden hand over centuries of control and manipulation, as they work together towards their ultimate objective of global governance under an all-encompassing technological control grid.
The world we experience is only a perception based on our ability to decode the energetic fields and frequencies surrounding us. Our five senses limit our ability to decode what actually exists in the space we occupy. Just because our biological radio is tuned to radio 4 does not mean radios 1 and 3 do not exist. Therefore, the existence of other forms of energetic consciousness, undetectable by our body's limited sensory perception, cannot be discounted. People who have heightened senses have the ability to connect into other frequencies and dimensions, allowing them to interact with various forms of non-human entities. Our history is riddled with myths and legends, stories of encounters with strange beings, such as angels, demons, ghosts and spirits. But what exactly are we dealing with? The different varieties of non-human entities could be as numerous as the leaves in a forest. It is impossible to put a figure on. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. As we have already discussed in previous chapters, there is a higher mind or logos consciousness, which most of us are tethered to, a spiritual realm of infinite variations and expressions of divine consciousness. How we interact or make the most of that connection is up to the individual. Some of our ancestors believed that the planetary bodies within our solar system also had a focal and subconscious aspect to them, radiating from their centers outwards. Positive and negative energy commonly depicted as angels, archangels and demons. A planet's aspect or angle towards another body is an arc. The archangel is nothing more than the angle between two bodies. In an electric universe, the angle between bodies is most important. It is the main driving mechanism of varying influence. Each planet and luminary has a personified character for specific energies corresponding to their individual angels, demons and archangels. In the age of Aries, during the time of the pharaohs, the angle of the sun in the sky was referred to as Horus. Divided into hourly portions, this became a way to monitor time and is where we get the word hour from. The importance of the sun's angle in the sky has an electromagnetic influence on our biological decoding mechanism, hence why our focal awareness appears stronger during the day than it is at night. Throughout the age of Pisces, under the Christian influence, this angle of Horus became known as Archangel Michael, the arc and angle of the sun in the sky. On the Alpha SE website, under the heading Egyptian Gods, they point out the similarities between Horus and Archangel Michael. It is interesting to notice the strong similarities to the Archangel Michael in the religions of the book, and the fact that Michael is said to be the protector of the Nile Delta. It is also no coincidence that each of the archangels' names end with L. This is simply a reference to the planet or luminary to which the angel or angle refers to. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, the old serpent, called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Revelations 12:7-9. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also on the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Isaiah 14. The war in heaven is not about angelic beings with feathered wings fighting off demonically possessed, red-eyed rebels from the dark recesses of God's kingdom. It is more likely to be referring to the time when Venus fell out of its old orbit into its present position. Lucifer comes from the Latin lux ferre, meaning light bringer. In Isaiah 14, Venus is referred to as the son of the morning star, which precedes the sun rising at 6 a.m. The scripture talks about Lucifer, Venus, falling from heaven. It then mentions how Venus begins its journey of ascension into heaven. In Revelations, there is a war between Archangel Michael and these fallen angels, which are cast out into the earth. It all begins to make sense when you look at it from an astrological point of view. Venus moved from its original orbit thousands of years ago. Its angles relative to the other planets fell out of position, on a course towards the Earth. As mentioned in Emanuel Velikovsky's 1950 book, Worlds in Collision, Venus made its way earthwards as a huge comet, giving the appearance of a fiery dragon with a long visible tail. As it passed by the Earth on 4 separate occasions, it caused the Earth to rotate in the opposite direction. The poles shifted and chaos ensued. This would explain the battle between the angle of Venus in the sky and the angle of the Sun, Archangel Michael. Finally, when Venus settled into its new orbit closer to the Sun and its ascension into heaven, Michael, the Sun, had essentially defeated Lucifer by finally rising in the east. During this process, many meteors would have broken away from the Dragon Comet and entered the Earth's atmosphere, giving the appearance of angels falling to Earth. I suspect it is one of these meteors which found its way to Mecca and is now housed in the famous Kaaba in the very heart of Venus-worshipping Islam. We can now appreciate that the concept of angels and demons do not exist in the manner commonly defined by man's religions, personified expressions of planetary angles designed to manipulate emotions in the hearts and minds of men, making it easier for outside sources to control humanity. Instead of frightening depictions of demons, Satan, Lucifer, and hell, there are magnificent planets, luminaries, stars, and a universe full of various forms and expressions of consciousness, which stretches far beyond the human imagination in a limitless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. With Venus in its new orbit and all the other planets stable, this latest version of electromagnetic planetary equilibrium creates new angular interference patterns that emanate towards the Earth, a new symphony of frequencies influencing human epigenetics in a new era of biological conscious expression. This could be the mechanism behind the Adam and Eve story, a different lineup of planetary gods casting a new combination of conscious vibrations, which became the breath of life entering the nostrils of Adam, a flesh and blood man, as a reflection of the universe, as above, so below. It is no surprise to see a correlation between human consciousness and universal consciousness. The ratio between the focal conscious and subconscious can be observed throughout the universe. The subconscious, tethered to the spirit realm, is the internal emotional aspect of the mind, commonly represented by water, the moon, the feminine, and the night. A recent study of the universe found that it is made up of 70% dark and 30% light energy. We also know that water makes up approximately 70% of the Earth's surface, leaving 30% for the land. It is therefore no surprise to find that the human body is also made up of 70% water. The star Sirius, which it has been suggested represents the subconscious aspect of our solar system's binary, is 2.3 times the mass of our Sun, which equates to a ratio of 70-30. From this, you would expect the human mind to have the same ratio for the sub and focal consciousness. However, the established view on this matter estimates the capacity of the subconscious to be a whopping 95%. The task of measuring the subconscious is not easy. It is based mostly on speculation rather than hard scientific evidence, so the figure of 95% is pure guesswork. Pure logic in this matter would expect the 70-30 ratio to continue, as above, so below. The soul is the immortal essence of the biological living being, the connection between focal consciousness and the higher mind logos. The spirit, on the other hand, is regarded as feminine, the internal emotional connection to that logos, an aspect and point of awareness which continues after the physical body expires. The Adam or Atman is an expression of the soul, whereas Eve represents the feminine spirit. To eat or feed from the tree of knowledge is to understand and experience both good and evil. It is to enter the physical realm and experience the earth as a biological living being, as a person born in sin, in the physical realm of the sine wave, formed by the zodiac cycle. It is to live and experience physical cycles of day and night, summer and winter, and time within space, existing within mortal sin, in which your physical body, after approximately 70 years, will surely die. Eve the spirit ate from the tree and gave to Adam, the soul, who also ate. Together as soul and spirit, they entered this world Their eyes were opened, and they found themselves naked in the flesh. And so it is written, the first man Adam was made a living soul. The last Adam was made a quickening spirit. The Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. To enter this earthly plane in a physical form and to experience its limitations within time and space is to move along the zodiacal sine wave of seasons and sun cycles. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Adam the soul represents the male, who is generally considered more physical and practical when it comes to earthly things, whereas Eve the spirit, who represents the female, is understood to be more emotional and in tune with her feelings. Although everyone possesses a soul and spirit, the male is traditionally more soulful and the female more spiritual. This male-female union complement one another, together creating a full circle of spirit and soul. Plato divided the soul, or psyche, into 3 separate parts. Each part is related to specific areas of the body. Plato's definition runs in line with the Adam daytime concept of the soul. It is also worth mentioning that the word used to describe the part of the body which primarily comes into contact with the physical earth is also known as the soul. The Hebrew Bible mentions the first king of a united Israel back in the 11th century BC. His name was King Saul. All around us are spirits of one kind or another, with various motives, just like the variety of people in our physical world. Using the law of attraction, we attract spirits to us in much the same way as we do people. Seeds are planted in the garden of our subconscious via thoughts and suggestions coming from our focal mind. Whatever we focus our attention on or occupy our minds with stimulate those kinds of seeds which grow within our subconscious spiritual garden. The Adam soul exercises the will to nurture whatever seeds are desired, while the Eve spirit connects with the fruit grown from the seeds planted by the Adam and the focal consciousness. The garden and its fruit acts as a beacon, attracting other spirits resonating at a similar frequency. Therefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. These spirits or non-human entities will help to amplify the assortment of energies and frequencies growing in your spiritual garden. Just like thousands of raindrops on a tin roof, this amplified energy filters its way out and into our physical reality, creating new experiences for the individual who was focusing on specific things. If you focus on good things will come to you. It is the same with bad things. The fighter preoccupied with conflict and death has a garden to match his thoughts. This attracts the appropriate spirits which help him manifest his reality. The fighter will live by the sword and die by it. When one dies or separates from the physical body, they begin a journey into the spirit world. The only thing which has changed from their perspective is that their point of attention within their consciousness has shifted into spirit form. Many will have guides to help them on their journey, but some stay earthbound for various reasons, hanging around for a while, unaware they have died. Others stay bound due to unhealthy attachments to families, homes, businesses, and other earthly familiarities. A portion stay due to perverted spiritual beliefs or an expectation of being destined for hell. Those who cannot accept that they are dead sometimes appear as ghosts or apparitions seeking attention. On the whole, most spirits ascend into the spirit world smoothly. It is believed in many cultures that most people will have at least one guardian spirit protecting them from harm throughout most, if not all, of their lives. A guardian spirit is generally considered to be someone who you have a connection with, either in this life or a past one. It could be a deceased family member, an ancestor, or a friend. In their spirit form, they look out for you, preserving your safety and interests. The human connection to the spirit realm is not easily apparent at this point in history. Our proximity to the Sirius star system may have some bearing on this. Sirius is a luminary, another expressive representation of our subconscious. Its distance from the Sun could explain why our physical consciousness does not easily interact with our subconscious and spiritual side, which may possibly improve as the Sun and Sirius move closer together. During the daytime, when the Sun's energy stimulates our focal consciousness, our spiritual awareness, due to earthly physical distractions. When the sun goes down, our focal awareness subsides. From midnight to around 4 a.m., when the sun is on the other side of the earth, our spiritual awareness improves. This is known as the witching hour. Anyone wishing to connect with spirits, ghosts, or other entities in this realm are advised to do it during this time period. Spiritual activity doesn't increase during these hours. It is just that our ability to sense spiritual connections appears to increase because the sun is out of the way. Another requirement for successfully connecting with the spirit realm is to be relaxed and at peace, allowing the mind to wander wherever it wishes to go. When in fear or anxiety, one tends to be grounded to lower energy vibrations within this physical plane, creating an obstacle towards spiritual interaction. The spirit world is abundant with every type of spirit for all eventualities. Whatever you wish to do in the physical realm can be catered for and helped into reality by like-minded spirits. You set the seed, nurture the idea, and the spirit will help you turn them into reality. This is why you often see individuals who break away from their old lives, sometimes moving to new places, find the universe and synchronicity working in their favor. People, places, and information appear to come to them at the moment when they most need it. It is as though their connection to a higher source of consciousness is working in their favor, something most people will put down to just coincidence. When you meet someone who has similar spirits interacting with them, you will automatically feel a connection. This is because you already know them on a subconscious spiritual level. With unlimited potential within the spirit realm, the person has a duty to his fellow humans when it comes to nurturing various seeds, as opposed to feeding a spiritual garden full of weeds and vices. The control system's influence over what we see and hear ultimately impacts the collective subconscious, and by massaging public perception, they align the collective with the required energy spheres throughout the spiritual realm. Consequently, by drawing in necessary spiritual influences which amplify our collective thoughts, they can easily promote their agenda. This is one of the dangers associated with globalization and the new technological age. The control system now can influence the whole planet with any belief, whether true or false, simultaneously. Whereas before, when we had millions of individual bulkheads acting independently with enough time to process ideas and suggestions, we could alleviate big disasters, preventing the ship going down too quickly. Without the bulkheads, the human collective subconscious can be steered to a tipping point using propaganda and relentless media exposure. An atmosphere of war can be artificially stimulated. Furthermore, as the war drums begin to beat, pro-war spirits will infest the minds of the unquestioning masses, amplifying their desire for revenge and blood. And once they pass the point of no return, a disastrous sequence of events will be set in motion as Pandora's box is opened and the hounds of hell are released. Children's spirits are untainted and pure. They are generally happy in their simple gardens, closely connected to their spiritual roots. They have not yet become corrupted by perverted beliefs which confuse and attract malevolent spirits, watched closely by their guardian spirits who keep them at a safe distance and away from unwanted influences. The term spirit has been adopted to describe strong distilled alcoholic beverages, ironic for a substance which poisons and wrecks the body, giving a false sense of spiritual highs. While the drunk upsets the chemical balance of his body, it will eventually turn into depression, disrupting a balanced consciousness. The drunk's spirits may find themselves sharing their garden with pro-alcoholic spirits, which help draw other alcoholics to him from all walks of life. It is generally accepted that we live within the constraints of 3 spatial dimensions and 1 of time. But is this accurate? Time is restricted to a single dimension when looking at it from a rigid lineal perspective. One could speculate that time has 3 dimensions, past, present and future. If we look at this closely, we see a correlation between space, time and consciousness. Space has 3 dimensions, X, Y and Z. Time has 3, and so does consciousness, with focal sub and higher mind logos. Instead of looking for a 4th dimension within the realms of spatial awareness, one may discover more through an understanding of our relationship to the spiritual and conscious realms. The interaction between these 3 realms is as real as time is with space, combining to create our earthly experience. One could argue that we already live in a 9-dimensional reality. One can appreciate that with multiple dimensions it is possible to interact in all manner of combinations, just as we have the ability to move through space in our limited physical bodies. Spirits also move freely in their spheres of familiarity. In our minds, we can recollect the past and imagine the future, stimulating our perceptive of life and influencing our present. Sightings of UFOs, ghosts and other kinds of apparitions could just be various expressions of universal consciousness moving between dimensions. As we interact with the spirit world during sleep, other dimensional entities could be doing the same in our world in much the same way. UFOs and apparitions have a tendency to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. It is far more plausible than the traditional view of extraterrestrial visitors travelling billions of miles from outer space to unpack their buckets and spades for a 2-week holiday here on Earth. Beings from outer space have fascinated people for centuries. The idea of an interstellar race visiting the Earth, even interacting with us on various levels, is legendary. There are many documented reports of sightings and encounters with all kinds of strange creatures. But distinguishing the extraterrestrial from an interdimensional could be difficult and confusing. Due to the vastness of space and the time it would take to get here, the probability of extraterrestrial life visiting the Earth seems unlikely. which makes the interdimensional explanation far more favourable. The existence of extraterrestrial life, given the infinite size of the universe, is more or less a certainty. The question is, can they get here? Some people, including prominent scientists, have serious doubts as to the validity of the American manned space mission to the moon, believing that the whole Apollo program was not what we think it was. Their reasons for doubting the official version of events are numerous, but one criticism is that humans cannot withstand the accumulative effects of the radiation out in space, and to provide adequate protection would make any rocket so heavy it would never get off the ground. If this is the case, other biological entities wishing to visit the Earth would encounter similar difficulties. Any advanced alien civilization with a desire to interact with Earthlings would find another less time-consuming way of getting here. Stargates have been suggested as one possibility. Many people are convinced that non-human entities have been influencing man's affairs since the beginning of time. It is even speculated by some that we are the result of scientific experiments by outside entities manipulating our genetics. Zecharia Sitchin, a Soviet-born American, wrote many books about an alternative to the origins of the human race. One of only a handful of people able to decipher ancient Sumerian clay tablets, he pieced together a different version of history. Sitchin believed that a highly advanced race of human-like beings came to Earth from the planet Nibiru approximately 450,000 years ago. Sitchin speculates that the planet is part of our solar system with an elliptical orbit, far beyond Neptune. According to Sitchin, the Sumerians called these visitors the Anunnaki, the offspring of Anu, sky god, who are also suspected as being the Nephilim mentioned in Genesis. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4. The King James translation refers to the Nephilim as giants. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. This could explain the existence of megalithic structures which are found all over the world. Not an easy feat for us to construct and move around, but a piece of cake for giants with advanced technology. The Sumerian writings talk of how the Anunnaki came to this planet looking for rare minerals, and in order to mine the minerals, they created a slave race of humanoids, known as Homo sapiens. They mixed their Anunnaki genes with the native Homo erectus, creating the basis of what we are today. It is also thought that they created a superior race with a greater percentage of the Anunnaki gene. These became the rulers who were given the divine right of kings, a superior Anunnaki human hybrid bloodline. We see the Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak came from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Numbers 13:33. And there was yet a battle in Gath, where was a man of great stature, that had on every hand 6 fingers, and on every foot 6 toes, 24 in number. And he also was born to the giant. 2 Samuel 21:20. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. It is not in Rabbath of the children of Ammon. 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. Deuteronomy 3:11. A bed of 9 by 4 cubits would be equivalent to 13.5 by 6 feet. When you compare this to a standard king-size bed of 6.6 by 6.3 feet, you can appreciate the scale. One can only imagine how big the Nephilim Anunnaki were, but it makes sense from the perspective of the Nephilim ruling elite to create a slave race half their size or less. These 4 were born to the giant in Gath, and fell by the hand of David, and by the hand of his servants. The ruling classes throughout history have sought to keep their blood lineage pure and undiluted by breeding incestuously amongst themselves. If their DNA is indeed special, with a greater percentage of superior genetics, descending from the gods of the ancient world, then one would understand and expect them to keep this tradition. If these godlike creatures did come to the earth to interbreed with the ape-man, creating us and our ruling elite bloodlines, we could expect the elite to have a greater spiritual connection to these extra-dimensional beings. There could be an argument made to suggest that although we are confined to this 4-dimensional space-time reality, the descendants of the gods, those with superior DNA, have a natural interaction with other dimensional realms, especially those resonating with their genetic frequencies. I would also suggest that if the Anunnaki Nephilim came here, then why not various other beings and entities also mixing with life on Earth, producing all kinds of hybrid offshoots? This would explain why there are different races in different parts of the world. When we expand our awareness towards higher levels of spiritual consciousness, opening ourselves up to a greater array of planetary frequencies, we energize our spirit's soul connection to the Logos, allowing our 5 senses in a paranormal way access to a greater number of frequencies and therefore expanded realities. At present, humanity is locked in a vicious cycle of division, stimulated by various kinds of monotheistic planet worship, feeding each religion with a narrow frequency band of reality, suppressing their ability to influence their own futures. If humanity united under an umbrella of polytheistic, holistic, universal energy, which expanded their consciousness, we may find that our physical reality is far more harmonious and balanced. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Albert Einstein. The various races we see on the planet today could be the result of thousands of years of successful interbreeding between Homo erectus, interdimensionals, and hybrids. Over time, those races which no longer served the evolving interests of non-human entities have, through various methods, been eliminated. Only recently has mainstream science concluded that all the races on the planet are from the same source. This is true in the sense that they all have a lineage to Homo erectus, but there is obvious differences both physically and consciously. If non-human entities are responsible for the way we are, it wouldn't be the first time science swung in favour of a political position to disguise the truth. It seems that any ancient race with an active spiritual or soulful connection to their higher mind and the rhythms of nature have either been eradicated or reduced to a pitiful existence, superseded by modern races eager to support suppressive systems of control. This was true in both North and South America, the Aborigines of Australia, and the elongated skulls of the Paracas. Africa, too, has seen its fair share of racial evolutionary change. To get one race to annihilate another is not easy. Intrinsically, most people do not want war. They are not interested in organizing themselves into fighting machines to kill each other. Only when psychopathic rulers pervert beliefs and nurture hatred is it then possible to persuade people to participate in these types of non-human activities of killing each other en masse. It is as though a non-human influence initiates and accelerates this type of behavior, and once the ball is rolling, the energy created engulfs and poisons the minds of those involved, until the flames of hatred eventually subside. When the fever is over, those who are left are bewildered as to how it all began. Non-human entities favour the psychopath, technology and the corporation structure because they are easily manipulated towards fulfilling anti-human objectives. Each race on Earth is slightly different, both in look and behaviour. This could be explained by the interbreeding of various entities and or proximity of that race's first biological manifestation in the flesh, the position on the earth of each race's atom in comparison to the position of the planets and universal energy, which influenced the DNA and epigenetic configuration when the gods first breathed life into their nostrils. A mixture of proximity and non-human biological interaction seems to be the most plausible explanation and could be the reason for our racial differences. Is it possible that interdimensionals have been here for a long time and are the hidden hand behind our various governments, a continuity of change pushing humanity towards the next phase of non-human control and manipulation? The push for globalization could be the result of non-human interference. It seems that although the majority of humanity want independence and sovereignty, the policy makers are forcing globalization upon the whole planet. When we analyze history, It has always been a battle for one's freedoms, each generation fighting against the suppression of liberty and their ability for self-determination. The power structures have always sought for greater control into fewer hands, pulling humanity into a net of manageable slavery, servicing the elite's interests. In May 2013, former Canadian Defence Minister and 23-year parliamentarian Paul Hellyer testified at the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure Conference in Washington, D.C. In his testimony to a packed audience, he stated, "At least 4 species of alien have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. There are live ETs on Earth at this present time, and at least 2 of them are working with the United States government. There are different species with different agendas. Tall whites are living on United States Air Force property and working in cooperation with the US Air Force and sharing technology. We live in a cosmos teeming with life of various sorts, is being kept secret by the same vested interests who control our destiny. Who are these vested interests and what are they up to? The cabal comprise of members of 3 sisters, the CFR, the Bilderberg and the Trilateral Commission. The international banking cartel, oil cartel, members of various intelligence organizations and select members of the military together have become a shadow government of not only the US but of much of the Western world. The aim of the game is a world government comprising members of the cabal who are elected by no one and accountable to no one. And according to Mr. Rockefeller, the plan is well advanced." On the night of February the 20th, 1954, while on vacation to Palm Springs, President Eisenhower went missing. After he reappeared, rumors emerged speculating that he had been taken to Edwards Air Force Base to meet with ETs, the Anunnaki. Eisenhower's cover story of an emergency dentist visit did not wash with many people, leaving room for all sorts of theories as to what he had been up to. Retired Command Sergeant Major Robert O. Dean stated that Eisenhower did in fact visit the airbase along with a group of representatives who made contact with entities from another world. Among the group that greeted the Anunnaki in 1954 at Ruark, which is now Edwards Air Force Base, there was an archbishop from Los Angeles by the name of Mike McIntyre. He had been invited to be present when they landed to meet them because Ike Eisenhower thought somebody ought to represent the church here, you know, and they brought McIntyre over from LA to Ruark. They were there for 2 days, and these guys scared the shit out of everybody with their technology, and they talked openly. The 2 hovered over the runway for 2 days, never landed, no legs or nothing. They just hovered over the damn runway. It's all on film, but the other guys came out, landed right in front of the hangar, got out and went over, shook hands or whatever. I don't know what the hell they did. McIntyre was present because Ike had invited him. After it was all over with, after the 2nd day, and these guys get back in their ship and off they go. Our intelligence people got hold of McIntyre and says, "Archbishop, you got to understand something. You can't talk about anything you've seen. This is beyond top secret. You can't say a word about what you have just experienced here." Robert O. Dean. It seems logical to assume that any external race would connect with humanity through influential channels, avoiding the majority of mankind. One could also make the assumption that any large organization with the potential to influence and advance any non-human agenda would be targeted for infiltration. Powerful institutions, corporations, and influential psychopaths present themselves as favorable targets. It has been suspected for many years that some secret societies, with their secret rituals, are tapping into other dimensions, seeking guidance from external entities. While other entities interact with our reality, they prefer we stay consciously naive, unable to interfere with theirs. Is it possible that the whole of human civilization has developed under the guidance of these non-human entities, and we are essentially a slave race created from start to finish, with traces of obvious interbreeding intentionally filtered out from modern society or kept hidden, out of sight and away from scrutiny, allowing the Darwinian theory of lineal evolution to go unchallenged? During his lifetime, Leonardo da Vinci accomplished many things. Not only was he a great artist and inventor, he was also a stickler for accurately recording detail. Among some of his drawings and sketches, there are a selection of grotesque heads. If they are a true reflection of what he was witnessing, one may wonder as to what other varieties of beings coexisted with humanity even in our not-so-distant past. In this modern world of division and competition, there is a possibility that advanced technology exists in the area of cloning and synthetic humanoids, manufactured in an attempt to influence humanity towards non-human goals. The advantage of this form of technology to any group of elite controllers is self-evident, and it has been speculated by some that it is real and has been around for decades. As with many secret governmental programs and black operations, sensitive technology of this nature would never be made public, and as with all technology, what enters the mainstream is years behind what government and military are working on behind the scenes. It has been over 20 years since Dolly the sheep was cloned back in the 1990s. I would suspect, with the best scientists, unlimited budgets, and no ethical rules holding them back, scientists somewhere working in military projects have already mastered this technology. The clone or synthetic humanoid may look like us and act like us, but will essentially be a factory-made psychopath, devoid of a spirit-soul connection, a perfect vessel for the non-human entities to utilize. With the emergence of transhumanist technology, our traditional biological bodies will no longer be sovereign, especially if we are forced through legislation to be microchipped with devices capable of tampering with our body's natural resonant frequency. If clones are being mass-produced, acting as an army of representatives, this would explain why society is moving in the direction it is. And if this really is the case, as some suspect, we truly are heading into a very dark future, with non-human entities at the helm. It would also make more sense, when viewing our inhumane past, if we consider opposing entities equally as psychopathic, initiating conflicts using their subordinate human races as cannon fodder, and any previous race or organization seeking independence from this form of control would find themselves being dealt with severely. According to Philip Schneider, a United States ex-government geologist and structural engineer who became involved in building underground military bases during the late 1970s, there are many different races of alien beings living deep underground and have been with us for thousands of years. Schneider also stated that the United States has 131 active deep underground military bases, and there are 1,477 all over the world. Many people are aware that billions of dollars annually are siphoned off from taxpayers' money into black budget secret military government operations, and because the United States holds the world's reserve currency, they have a bottomless pit to tap into. On September the 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, the then Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, admitted to losing $2.3 trillion of Pentagon money, with absolutely no idea as to its whereabouts. In August 1979, Schneider was working on a new deep underground military base down in New Mexico when the drilling machine they were using repeatedly broke. He suspected something was not quite right when dozens of green and black beret soldiers showed up. Consequently, when his team was sent down to inspect the drilling machine, all hell broke loose. I was involved in building an addition to the deep underground military base at Dulce, which is probably the deepest base. It goes down several levels and over 2.5 miles deep. At that particular time, we had drilled 4 distinct holes in the desert, and we were going to link them together and blow out large sections at a time. My job was to go down the holes and check the rock samples and recommend the explosive to deal with that particular rock. As I was headed down there, we found ourselves amidst a large cavern that was full of outer space aliens, otherwise known as large greys. I shot 2 of them. At that time, there were 30 people down there. About 40 more came down after this started, and all of them got killed. We had surprised a whole underground base of existing aliens. Later, we found out that they had been living on our planet for a long time, perhaps 1 million years. This could explain a lot of what is behind the theory of ancient astronauts. Anyway, I got shot in the chest with one of their weapons, which was a box on their body that blew a hole in me and gave me a nasty dose of cobalt radiation. I have had cancer because of that. Philip Schneider, 1995. Schneider was only one of a handful of people with level 1 security clearance, and possibly the only one speaking out publicly about what he knew. He says there were 9 underground bases in and around Area 51, employing 18,000 people in shifts, developing and testing technology shared by non-human entities. The act of speaking out put Schneider in a compromising position. He was essentially breaking his official oath and ultimately the law. This could be one of the reasons for his mysterious premature death in January 1996, only a few months after going public. The huge sums and resources involved in building these deep underground military bases derive from fear and insecurity. Money which could be used to eradicate human suffering and poverty is being spent on this underground world. One has to ask, why is it of benefit to humanity, or is it primarily for non-human entities to exist and interact unmolested, deep under the earth, shielded from the electromagnetic influences of cosmic planetary bodies, which stimulate the rest of human activity? It is possible that these godless players have already mapped out the future of the earth and all its inhabitants, hiding themselves from the effects of their non-human agenda. Artificial humanoids living in an artificial environment, promoting an artificial future of transhumanism. It is as though there is a breakaway civilization, one with all the money, technology, and connections to this other world of interdimensional non-human activity, and the rest of us, surface dwellers, existing in an open-air prison on the unwanted scraps the elite leave behind. A prison designed to keep us busy and distracted. Maybe when this breakaway civilization has reached its goal and built its Death Star, they will have no more use for us surface dwellers. Not only do we hear reports of underground bases, but also undersea ones too. William Cooper, ex-United States Naval Intelligence officer, while serving on a submarine out in the Pacific Ocean, witnessed a UFO come out of the sea and fly off. When I left the Air Force, I went into the Navy, and this is where everything began to happen for me. I had originally intended to just go from service to service and do something that very few people have ever done before. I was very adventurous, very crazy young man, and I thought that would be a pretty exciting life. I volunteered for submarines, and while on the submarine USS Toyroot SS-416, on a transit between the Portland-Seattle area and Pearl Harbor, which was our home port, the Pearl Harbor sub-base, as the port lookout, I saw a craft, saucer-shaped, the size of a Midway-class aircraft carrier. For those of you who don't know how big that is, it's huge. Come up out of the water, approximately 2.5 nautical miles off the port bow, which is about 45 degrees to the left of the pointy end of the submarine. It tumbled slowly on its own axis and went up into the clouds. It appeared to be moving slowly to me at a distance of 2.5 nautical miles, but in reality it was moving pretty fast, because it came up out of the water, did a few tumbles, and it was gone. William Cooper. In 2002, Gary McKinnon, a Scottish systems administrator and computer hacker, was arrested for hacking into 97 US Army, Navy, Air Force, Department of Defense and NASA computers, looking for evidence of suppressed advanced technology. He was charged with penetrating the biggest military computer hack of all time. During this 13-month period of system penetration, it has been speculated that he discovered secret documentary evidence of all kinds of off-world technology, including anti-gravity, free energy, and reverse-engineered alien spacecraft. His activities caused such an embarrassment to the United States authorities that they sought to extradite him to the US for trial and throw him in jail for 60 years, setting an example to other hackers. In 2012, the British Home Secretary, Theresa May, announced that the extradition order had been blocked and that McKinnon would be safe in the UK for the time being. The disruptions in the Middle East are multifaceted, not as simple as the mainstream media have us believe. This area is at the heart of the ancient world. Sumer, Babylon, Egypt and Mesopotamia all have secrets buried of the past, remnants of ancient history and hidden technology. As we hurtle through space, entering a new phase of cosmic energetic influence, is it possible that ancient portals and stargates have reactivated, opening up conduits to other dimensions? Some people believe so, and that one aspect of the wars unfolding in that area are to determine which factions have ultimate control over this technology. During the morning hours of December the 9th, 2009, as many Norwegians were preparing for a state visit from the United States President Barack Obama, a mysterious blue and white light appeared from the east over the mountains of northern Norway. Initially the light started out as a blue beam, but transformed into a twisting spiral of white light, turning into a giant spiral hundreds of miles in diameter, rotating for several minutes before being swallowed up by a black hole which appeared from the centre moving outwards. Those who witnessed it said it was not a natural phenomena, but a mysterious anomaly unusual for those parts. With the geopolitical situation unfolding in the world, one can't help but wonder whether this forced integration and refugee policy is an effort to make it easier for non-human entities and synthetics to assimilate, going unnoticed in this new multicultural globalized society. Anonymity in a crowd is what they seek, allowing them to advance their control over the native surface dwellers as they pave the way for the next phase of human evolution and globalization. With their superior technology, they will decide who and what survives in this brave new unfolding world. Is it the case that sometime in our past, our ancestors, surface dwellers, ultimately became aware of these manipulating factions and united in an attempt to free themselves from the shackles placed upon them by this secret hidden hand, and unfortunately were annihilated in a fierce retaliatory war, sending humanity back to the Stone Age? It is only speculation, but a plausible one with all the things considered. It appears that the main priority of these non-human entities is to keep hidden away from public scrutiny. Our civilization, which continues under the illusion they are alone, would never suspect or see outside their basic paradigm. They will continue to believe they are in control of their own destiny until it is too late.
When you see it all, there's another world out there. Oh, so far another world. Can you see the faces on Mars and the shadows on the moon? Yet it all seems so far. They're all coming pretty soon. Looking out, there's another world out there. Finding out, and it's all so clear. You see all the colors and the light years, and the fall of Babylon. You can read about the pharaohs, and you can read about the sun. There's another world. There's another world. There's another world. Another world. your head. We're too busy talking to notice it's begun. There's another world. There's another world. There's another world. Another world.